Well, afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to this LinkedIn Live series. And thank you for joining us on what is a little mini series where I'm joined by Ian Roberts to talk about all things ESG. As ever, I really appreciate everyone's ongoing support for this LinkedIn series. It's been great, and we've had some really fabulous feedback on the more recent LinkedIn Lives we did, which has been great to see. And I'm hoping over this series of 4 mini events, we can get more and more people engaged with what we mean by ESG and why ESG has been such a critical part of our organization and something I believe every leader in every sector should be becoming more focused about. But without further ado, let's dig in today in terms of what we mean by ESG and why we should all spend a little bit more of our time thinking about ESG. So massive welcome to Ian, who's joining us today. Ian, are you okay just to maybe give us a quick intro into yourself and your role at Agena?
Yeah, sure thing. Afternoon all. My name's Ian Roberts. I am currently the lead on compliance and all things ESG at Agena Group. And prior to that, I used to also have involvement in commercial. I was the commercial director, but now my role is focused solely on ESG and compliance.
Excellent. So, Ian, I know this is a topic you're particularly passionate about and something that you've kind of made huge progress in Agena over the last couple of years. And I know, the plan through these series is today we'll talk a little bit about, at a high level, about what ESG really means, why organizations should be involved, the benefits that I guess we see both for our employees and engagement with our customers. And then we'll do a individual series on each of the 3 components of ESG. So we'll follow that up after this event. So today's going to be a little bit more high level. We will dig into each of the 3 topics of ESG and provide some more detail in terms of their content and give you a flavour of the kind of actions that we've taken in Agena Group across the last 2 to 3 years now that we've been running our ESG program. But Ian, I'm going to ask you the impossible task now, maybe in like a minute or so, just kind of summarize what ESG means to you and why it's something that you're so passionate about.
Good question. Yeah. Obviously the E and the S and the G stands for environment, social value and governance. So it all speaks to those things. I think you could summarize it, you could condense it even more really by just saying it's kind of doing the right thing. It's doing the right thing for the right reasons in those particular areas. Let's do the right thing by the environment. Let's do the right thing by the societies we work within and the people that we employ. And let's try and do things, let's try and govern ourselves properly in the right way. So I could just condense it all to doing the right thing, really. If I take a step back to before we started getting involved in ESG, and I think back to our Agena values, one of our values we decided that before we went on the ESG journey is we wanted to be ethical. Well, I think that all of this ESG just stems back into our ethical value, which is just do the right thing, do things for the right reasons.
Yeah. And I guess what's been interesting on that journey is there's lots of actions we, as you say, already had in place, wasn't there, that now form part of our ESG plan. So whether that's our external accreditations, our ISO accreditations, I guess what's been really pleasing for me, though, is both how, I guess, it's helped us from an employee perspective, but also from securing new business. So can we just dig into how ESG has helped us in Agena with our employees and some of the things that we do? And I know you chair our award-winning environmental committee. Just be good to understand a bit more about that to start with.
Yeah. From the people side of things, I mean, I know from doing a little bit of research and working with Carly, our People Services Director, that people like to work for companies that do the right thing. They want to feel that they're in a right place to work. And we've certainly found that. When we've done our employee engagement surveys, we found that to be true also. I also see on the engagement committee how much people get involved and they get really passionate about stuff, about things to do with the environment. And us working with the societies that we sit within and our clients that we work with. So I think employees get a lot out of it personally, but I also think they genuinely like to work for a company where they think the company is trying to do the right thing. And I think that helps with recruitment, and I think that helps with retention. That's absolutely what we're seeing. So from an employee side of things, they're the benefits I see. And I think I see people that enjoy working on the environmental committee within Agena.
Yeah.
If I move towards the other side of the question, which is, what are the benefits for the business? Again, more and more we're seeing through larger procurements, there's a very heavy weighting on what you're doing with your ESG strategies. And I'm really, really pleased that in recent times, we've scored very, very well when we've been marking against our ESG performance. And indeed, on many occasions, we've been top performers and everybody's then been marked against us. So from a strictly business perspective, it's a very intelligent thing to do because other businesses are holding you to those standards. So if you can demonstrate to them that you are doing the right things by the environments you work within, and that you're governing yourself properly, it will win you some more business. Just an interesting stat. I went to a meeting with the Department for Transport 18 months, 2 years ago. When government procures, they used to look for the most economically advantageous tender. That's what the procurement official's job was to do. And the Department of Transport invited people to this meeting to say, that's not how it works anymore. We want to tell you a little bit more about how it works. It's about the most advantageous tender. They dropped the word economically because they said, we need this to be advantageous, not just economically, but across the piece. Yeah. And now government will award up to 30% of their marks for your ESG credentials. So it's a really good thing for the business to do. It's a really good thing for the people within the business seem to enjoy.
And I guess what's been really interesting, if I think back to, various roles I've held in the past, whereas there's been a tendency of saying you're doing the right thing versus, I guess actioning and actually doing the right thing. I guess what ESG's really tested us to do, there is no place to hide. There's a term of greenwashing where, people are kind of saying all the right things, but in reality, it's about, they're not necessarily taking the action and following through. I guess what I've been so pleased about in Agena is we've built a plan, we've executed that plan, and we've made a real difference. And I think the demonstration that we're having less impacts on the environment, we're more considered to the consequence running of our business has to the environment. We have a whole range of social value projects. And I think we think quite holistically about governance and bring in external people to help us govern and drive the organization forward. Actually, as someone just running a business, it's been really, really helpful just to do all of those things. And not because it helps us win a procurement or anything else, but just because actually I think we run a much better business for it.
I'd agree.
But I guess there's still quite a lot of greenwashing going on from what I can see. And I don't know if we want to just expand a bit more on what we mean by greenwashing for everyone, because I do think there's a real danger people see this as, let's just tick the box and say we have an ESG plan and not think about it anymore.
Yeah, I do. And it's one of the things I thought about when we went on the ESG journey, when we knew very little about it. We started to learn about it. And I was very keen that we didn't do that we didn't just talk the talk, that we had to walk the walk. And there would be occasions when we'd have to put our money where our mouth was, and it might cost us a little bit more. Invariably, it's in the short term. In the long term, you invariably end up saving money. We have to do things that cost you some money. They're about investing in your people. They're about giving people volunteer days. They're about spending some money, getting some EV chargers in, which we're about to do in a couple of our offices in the coming months. They're about spending the money to work with third parties who can help you on that journey, help you calculate your carbon footprint, and then go spend the money to offset that carbon footprint. So for me, the greenwashing thing is the difference is about it's about saying things, it's about doing things as opposed to just saying things. And I think I don't want to use these talks to blow our own trumpet, as it were. We've got our ESG reports on our website. You can look at them, but we can evidence that we've done things as opposed to saying we'd like to do things. So for me, greenwashing is about trying to convince somebody you're doing the right things, but when you scratch below the surface, you can't really see much evidence of that.
Yeah.
It's about evidencing it as well as talking about it for me.
And I guess, Ian, what's been really great is actually some of the conversations we've had internally about we need to execute against this plan. That's going to cost us some money. It's going to take time and resource out of the business to do it. And actually, every time we've had that conversation, there's been some kind of benefit.
Yeah.
You know, if I think back to how we've reorganized all of our waste management, you know, talk a little bit about in detail, and we'll come back to that in a follow-up series. That took a little bit of money up front to organize ourselves better. But now actually we have a substantial reduction to what goes to landfill.
Yep.
And we have a much more efficient way of handling waste that comes out of the nature of the business that we operate. Absolutely. And you know, if I think back even just a few years, I think I would have been really dismissive actually of why that was a good thing to do. You know, that doesn't sit within the kind of usual commercial framework we decide on. I do think it allows you to think a little bit differently as a leader, a decision maker, a manager, but also, I guess for me, just knowing that we're having less impact as a result of the business we operate is just a great place to be, actually, and seeing the positive impact that these actions have.
Yeah, absolutely. On the waste side of things, I think the last our environmental committee meeting last week, and our stats are down to 100% doesn't go to landfill at the minute because you get reports every single month, so that's great. But that piece of work it forces a spotlight on a particular area that, as a senior leadership team, maybe you're not that concerned about. But when you're trying to do things and look at all things sustainable, you'll start to look at these areas. But we've actually saved ourselves some money. So we manage waste much better. We spend less on it. And some of the byproducts of that also, we realise that some of the way we're having to transport our waste from point A to point B is really wasting a lot of time for our engineers as well. So we could scratch our head and say, not only are we doing this and it's not particularly environmentally friendly, actually it's not particularly efficient either. So I found every time we look under a stone, we tend to save ourselves some money and get a little bit more efficient and do the right thing at the same time.
Yeah, which is kind of feels like the best combination, actually. And I think I guess a lot of that I'd put down to the engagement of the wider team. You know, we've mentioned the environmental committee. We'll maybe come back to that in the next session. But I think just embedding ESG as a corporate objective into every employee's focus and thinking about how we get everybody on the page of ESG. And I guess even if you think about our town hall calls that we do with the whole organization, there's always an ESG flavor, isn't there? And I guess what would your advice be to how would you fully embed ESG into an organization to make sure it's a movement seen by everyone in the business rather than just a leadership initiative?
That's a great question, Paul, because one of the things that I aim for is this becomes cultural and not something that you as the CEO back, that me as the person who leads ESG and compliance backs, that the senior lead you've seen back. I think that's quite easy to do because you've got a small number of people and those people are decision makers as well. So you've absolutely got to get the leadership on board first. Nothing's going to happen unless the leadership are on board. So if you're going to embed it, you've got to begin at the top. So you, as our CEO, are responsible for our ESG plan. You didn't get your arm twisted up your back. It was something like, that's for me. So you're the figurehead of all things ESG. And then below that, you've got senior leadership representation. To bring that down into the organisation, we've got to do a lot of things which we've done, which is one, first and foremost, we got an environmental committee. Anybody who wants to be interested in moving the things from an environmental perspective can join that committee. One thing we had the idea of doing, we've broken all of the things that we're looking at. We've broken them all out into work streams, and people have taken the lead of those work streams. So as a couple of examples, waste became a work stream. So we said, let's not all look at everything. So one individual in the organisation put his hand up and said, I'd like to look at that. I'm actually quite close to it in the business, and I think I can make a difference. And that person leads that work stream. Somebody else leads utilities. How can we look at utilities and reduce what we cost in utilities? Somebody else looks after paper and how we can reduce paper and paper consumption, and the list goes on. So if you can break it down into work streams, as it were, and have people lead those work streams and empower them to go away and come up with ideas, and then challenge us to back them and their ideas, then I think that helps embed it into the organisation. Comms and marketing really good. So part of our environmental committee team, we have the comms and marketing team on there. So we get all of the good news that we do. We get that published and out through the organisation, and where we're looking for extra data, they'll help us there. The town halls that we do, it's speaking through those. And I think, if I'm honest, I just want to get. I think I've won when I've got everybody thinking that way and everybody challenging each other on all things environmental, social value, governance. But I think you absolutely have to begin from the top. Get yourself an environmental committee, and then work down the tiers.
And what's been, and I completely agree, and I guess supporting all of that, we've embedded in everyone's personal objectives, haven't we? An objective around ESG. So from one of our corporate aims this year and our organisational aims, all the way down to individual objectives, everyone has an objective set around our ESG strategy. I guess the key thing, I'd just add, is making ourselves accountable. So, communicating a plan, committing to what we'll do by when, and then publicising the outcomes in our annual reports. And both of our previous annual reports are available for people to take a look at. What we'll do in the comments of this event is we'll just drop a link into our website onto the most recent ESG report, so people can, take a look if they've not seen it previously, what the output of this plan looks like, which has been great. Well, look, I'm hoping that's provided a bit of an intro for everyone into what ESG means. I'm conscious we haven't delved too deeply into each of the topics, but what we'll do through the next 3 events is go into now the 3 specific topics of ESG. So thanks for everyone who's joined us today. Ian, really appreciate you taking us through that overview. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time to delve into the environmental part of ESG and explore that in a little bit more detail. Comments, as always, greatly appreciated. If there's things that you'd like us to see specifically focus on over the next 3 events, then please let us know. Do take the time to follow the link to our ESG document, so you can see what we've done over the last 12 months, how that's helped us move the business forward, and how that's helped us win more business, but also retain more employees, as we've talked about through this session. So thanks again for everyone who joined us today. Appreciate all those people who also watch us back, and we will be back in 2 weeks' time when we delve into the wonderful world of environmental. And I will see you there for that, Ian.
Cheers.
Thanks all. Cheers.